Welcome student to Massive Open online course on Indian economy. Today I am going to discuss the module entitled India and China, a comparative analysis. After completing this module, you are able to understand the difference between India and China in respect of area, population and demographic profile. This module also helpful to understand the economic scenario of these two countries, India and China. You will also able to learn the political system of these two countries. The present module consists with 8 sections. Section 1 introduces the theme, whereas section 2 describes the differences between India and China in respect of their area, population and demographic profile. And from section 3 to section 7 describe different aspects of China and India, specifically in respect of their economy, poverty scenario, human development scenario, infrastructure scenario, as well as environmental scenario. And finally, section 8 makes the concluding observations. We are all aware that these two countries, India and China, are the most populous countries and fastest growing economy in the world. But their development strategy or the path of the development are different. China followed mainly central growth strategy, which is dominated by Communist Party, and it is called the state-led model of development. Whereas India is the country where multi-party system, and it is mainly functioning both private as well as the public sectors. And both the countries has achieved their remarkable economic success, but they also face significant challenges in terms of the poverty, inequality, environmental degradation and geographical tensions. Present module explores these aspects, the different aspects of India and China, and make a comparative analysis in between these two countries. From this map, it is clear that India is located in the southeast region, whereas China is located in the East Asia region. As regards the size of these two countries, the size of the China is larger than that of the India, and it is 3 times larger than that of the India. And this information help us to understand some specific features in respect of the population and the demographic profile. As regards population, both the countries having the population nearly 1.4 billion in the latest year 2021. As regards the population density of India is 3 times higher than that of the China. Similarly, the sex ratio, which is measured by the number of females per 1,000 male, is also higher in India compared to the male. But the life expectancy for both male and female are higher in case of China compared to the India. In respect of life expectancy for male, in case of China it is 75 years, whereas in case of India it is 69 years. For the females, the life expectancy in China is 81 years, and for India it is 72 years. There is also significant difference between the median age. In case of China, the median age is 38.4 years, quite higher compared to the median age of India, which is 28.7 years. Similarly, both birth rate and death rate are higher in India compared to China. Side by side, it is also true that the infant mortality rate is also higher in China compared to the India. The infant mortality rate is quite higher in India compared to China. The infant mortality rate in India is 40 per 1,000 live birth, whereas in case of China, it is 11 per live birth. This figure help us to understand the trend of the population over time. In the year 1950s, the population of the India was 0.37 billion, whereas in case of China, which was quite high, 0.55 billion. But China crossed the 1 billion population in the year around 1987, whereas India crossed this 1 billion in 9 years later than that of the China. And during the present year, the population of the India and China is closer to each other, and approximately 1.4 billion in 2021, and Chinese population is marginally higher than that of the India. This figure help us to understand the distribution of the population of these two countries, China and India. It is actually the figure which is called the population pyramid. This is the population pyramid of China, the distribution of the male and female population. It is the population pyramid of India, the distribution of population of male and female population. And here the size of the pyramid or distribution of the population of these two countries are quite different. In case of India, here the average age of population or median age of population is relatively lower compared to the China. Side by side, it is also true that the fertility rate of China is also lower than that of the India. But during the period 1960 to 75, during this period, the fertility rate of China was higher than that of the India. But after that, after 1975, in the year 1979, Chinese government adopted or implemented a single child policy. Accordingly, they have experienced a relatively smaller fertility rate. After 1979, they have experienced relatively smaller fertility rate. The fertility rate also reduced in case of India, but the rate of reduction is relatively less, and the fertility rate during the entire period after 1975 was higher in India compared to that of the China. As a result, India has experienced relatively high growth rate of population compared to the China. This figure helps us to understand the growth rate of the population as well as the growth rate of the China, and India here experienced a high growth rate of the population during the entire time period after 1975, whereas the growth rate of the population of China is relatively low. During the recent years, China has experienced very low growth rate of the population, which is 0.26%, whereas India has experienced relatively high growth rate of population, which is 1.04% per annum. Along with this, there are some significant differences in respect of population as well as demographic profile, and each of the countries have faced the situation of this demographic profile. Now section 3. Section 3 deals with the economic scenario of India and China. The economic scenario of India and China is described in respect of income, structural distribution of income, inequality, and trade as well as foreign direct investment. As regards income, gross domestic product is the most important indicator of the income. According to the World Bank data, the China's nominal GDP was $14.7 trillion in the year 2020, while India's nominal GDP was $2.7 trillion. This means that Chinese economy was more than 5 times richer or larger than the India's economy in the year 2020. As regards per capita income, the per capita income of China was $10,484 in 2020, while in case of India it was only $1,965. That is, Chinese average person or average income per person was more than 5 times than the average income per person of India. Along with this nominal measure of GDP, both gross as well as per capita terms, the another important measure which is most important, that is the purchasing power parity measure of the GDP, because this purchasing power parity measure of GDP able to adjust the purchasing power or the price level of different countries. Therefore, the GDP or per capita GDP in PPP term, purchasing power parity term, is more significant to understand the relative position of different countries in respect of the income. And according to the World Bank data, Chinese purchasing power parity GDP was $24.1 trillion in 2020, while in India's purchasing power parity GDP was $8.9 trillion. This means that Chinese economy was about 2.7 times larger or richer compared to the Indian economy in respect of the purchasing power parity GDP. Now, if we compare the GDP in nominal term and GDP in the purchasing power parity term, then the GDP in the nominal term of China is 5 times higher than that of India, whereas the GDP in PPP term is 2.7 times higher than that of the India. That means the cost of living in China is much higher compared to the India, which is reflected with the high nominal GDP compared to the PPP GDP. As of 2021, China and India are the second and fifth largest economy in the world in respect of the nominal GDP. But in respect of the PPP GDP, the position of China is first, whereas the position of India is the third. And in the 1987, both the countries having the quite similar value of the nominal GDP, which was $279 billion. But after that, there is a huge disparity in respect of the nominal GDP. And during the recent years, the nominal GDP of China that I have mentioned earlier is 14,723 billion. In case of India, it is 2.623 billion. Specifically, after 90s, after the liberalization policy introduced by India, there is a gap between income of China and India. Both are having high growth rate, but the growth rate of income of China is higher than that of the India. Similar argument we can put forward in respect of the trend of the GDP, which is measured by PPP term, purchasing power parity term. In the year 1990, both the countries, China and India, have experienced quite similar value of the PPP GDP, but year after year, China have experienced relatively higher value of GDP in PPP term compared to India. Now we come to the other indicator of the economic scenario, which is called the sectoral composition. Sectoral composition help us to understand the relative importance of different sectors, specifically the relative importance of agriculture, industry and service sectors. As regards the sectoral distribution of China, the relative importance of manufacturing sector is higher compared to that of the India. In case of India, the relative importance of the service sector is higher than that of the China. According to the World Bank data of 2019, the industry sector accounted for 39.5% of the Chinese GDP, whereas in case of India, it is 23.6%. While service sector accounted for 54.1% of Chinese GDP and 54.6% of India's GDP. Now we consider another indicator of the economic scenario, which is called income distribution. Income distribution help us to understand what is the extent of inequality of income, and this extent of inequality of income can be measured by the Gini coefficient. And according to the World Bank estimation, for the year 2018, the latest available year, the Chinese Gini coefficient was 38.5%, while India's was 35.7%, which indicate that inequality in China is higher than that of the India. Now we come to the another indicator of the economic scenario, that is trade and investment. As regards the trade of investment, the trade openness is relatively higher in China compared to India. This trade openness can be measured by the volume of export and imports compared to the GDP. That is, the ratio of the export plus import to GDP is the measurement of the trade openness. And the trade openness of the China is higher than that of the India. And according to World Bank estimation in 2019, Chinese trade openness was 38%, while India's trade openness was only 19%. That is, Chinese trade openness is 2 times higher than that of the India's trade openness. Not only that, China has also experienced largest exporter as well as importers in the world, and their trade surplus of 535 billion in the year 2020, whereas India has experienced deficit in the international trade, and this amount of deficit was $118 billion in 2020, and this is mainly due to the huge import in respect of the petroleum product or oil product. As regards investment, here we consider only the foreign direct investment. The flow of the foreign direct investment is also high in China compared to the India. Now we come to section 4, the poverty scenario of the two countries. Here we can explain the poverty scenario of the two countries in respect of the monetary poverty as well as in respect of the multidimensional poverty. In respect of the monetary poverty, which is also called income poverty, there is a threshold of per capita per day income as measured by the World Bank. And as regards the multidimensional poverty, which is measured in respect of the different dimension, and UNDP measured the multidimensional poverty scenario of different countries. Here we can consider these two aspects of measurement of the poverty to understand the distinction between India and China in respect of the poverty scenario. According to World Bank estimation, the India is a country with highest number of poor people, with about 176 million living below the international poverty line, which is $2.15 in a day, which is measured in purchasing power parity terms in 2011. And China has about 16 million people living below the same threshold. That is, number of people living below the poverty line in case of India is higher than that of the China. Similarly, we can also argue that here the multidimensional poverty is also higher in India compared to the China. According to the latest estimation of the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index in the year 2022, China has reduced its multidimensional poverty from 6.3% in 2010 to 1.4% in 2019, while India has reduced its multidimensional poverty during the same period, and India is able to reduce 55.1% to 27.9% in the same period. That is, the reduction of the multidimensional poverty in India is quite higher than that of the China. But India still has experienced higher share of multidimensionally poor people. And according to this estimate, the number of multidimensional poor people in India is 385 million, whereas in case of China it is 179 million. Now we come to the infrastructural status of these two countries. Here we measure the infrastructural status in respect of the road, in respect of the railway network, in respect of the waterways, as well as in respect of the port and airports. As regards the road network and railway network, the position of India is higher than that of the China. Here the network of the roadways of India is higher than that of the China. Similarly, the network of the railways of India is higher than that of the China. This table help us to understand the length of the road of China and India. The length of the road of China was 5,200,000 km, whereas the length of the road of India is 6,371,847 km. Similarly, the railway network of China is 6,800,141 km, whereas in case of India it is 6,800,155 km. That is, the both road as well as railway network in India is higher than that of the China, but the size of the China is 3 times higher than that of the India, which indicates that the density of the roadways as well as the railway network is higher in India compared to China. That is, in respect of infrastructural facility in terms of roadways and railway network, the position of India is quite better compared to the China. But in case of China, the waterways is higher than that of the India. Similarly, China have experienced higher number of ports than India as well as higher number of airports compared to the India. Along with the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, we can also explain here the energy consumption and energy production. As regards energy consumption and energy production, the China has experienced relatively higher value of energy consumption and energy production, and they are also able to export more energy in this regard. As regards China, the energy consumption was 5.564 trillion kilowatts, whereas in case of India, it is only 1.137 trillion kilowatts. Similarly, energy production, energy export and energy imports of China is also higher than that of the India. Now we come to the section 6, which deals with the healthcare system. The as regards the healthcare system, the scenario of the China is quite better compared to the India, and here the China also used relatively higher share of their GDP in the health sector compared to India. According to the estimation of the RAND report, China used 3% of their GDP in the health sector, whereas India used 1% of their GDP in the health sector. Accordingly, we have noticed a significant difference of the physical health infrastructure. One of the important indicator of the physical health infrastructure is hospitals beds per thousand population. China has 4.31 hospital beds per thousand population compared to only 0.53 in case of India, as well as number of physicians per thousand population is 1.79 in China, and in case of India it is only 0.78. But both the countries have experienced the dominance of the private health sector, and the out-of-pocket payments of the patient is also higher in both of the countries. Though the China universally implemented the health insurance scheme, India has also implemented national health insurance scheme, but a significant portion of our people not able to involve in this or not able to facilitate in this national health insurance scheme in our country. Now we come to the human development, environment and political scenario or aspects of these two countries. This human development scenario help us to understand the quality of life of these two countries. It is true that both of the countries have experienced the growth in respect of their economic status, but simultaneously they have experienced a significant number of poor, malnourished, as well as illiterate people. And according to the Human Development Index 2020, the ranks of China is 85th out of 189 countries with their Human Development Index value 0.761, whereas in case of India, India ranked 131st and its HDI value is 0.645. And China is the country of high human development category, whereas India is the country of medium human development category. As regards environmental status, both these countries are generating huge greenhouse gases in the world environment. But it is true that the emission of the carbon is higher in case of China compared to the India, because in case of China there is more industrial units have experienced in China. Now we come to the politics. There is a huge difference or significant difference between India and China in respect of the political scenario. China has experienced a single party system, and it is the Chinese Communist Party, and China is governed by the one party dictatorship under the leadership of Xi Jinping, who holds the multiple titles such as President of China, General Secretary of the Communist Party, and the Chairman of the Central Military Commission. Side by side, it is also true that the Chinese government exercises tight control over its media, internet, civil society, and suppresses any form of opposition or protest. But in case of India, we the people, we have enjoyed more freedom, and we are also able to protest of different government or social activities. And India is a country which is run by the parliamentary democracy with regular elections and multi-party system, a free press and independent judiciary and vibrant civil society. From this political system, we can argue that the citizens of India have enjoyed more freedom compared to the citizens of China. Now we come to the conclusion. It is true that both the countries have experienced very high growth rate, and they are also able to experience the development in respect of different socio-economic indicators. But side by side, it is also true that they are facing the challenges in respect of the poverty, sustainable development, as well as inclusive development. Their growth trajectory depends on how they balance their economic growth with social justice, environmental sustainability, and international cooperation. They also have opportunities to learn from each other's experience and cooperate for mutual benefit in future.